It's great to be here. So welcome to the Think B2B conference. The team has put together an amazing program today, and we're going to talk a lot about how you can harness the power of innovation to transform your businesses. How many of you think that you should transform your businesses today? Show of hand. Okay, about 50% of you. So 50% of the rest is delusional, right? My job is to make sure that 100% of this room believe that every day they have to transform their businesses. I think it's really important to keep that in mind. Things are moving very fast in today's industry. There are a lot of interesting people at Google, beyond Jay. And one of the gentlemen that I think is the most remarkable is someone by the name of Ray Kurzweil. I don't know if any of you know Ray. Yeah, you do. Ray is an inventor. He's a futurist, and I'd like to paraphrase one thing he said about a big problem that all of you and all of us are facing today. And here's, roughly speaking, what he said. He said that our intuition about the future is linear. Our brain works linearly. But the nature of information technology is exponential. And that's the big difference. You know, if I walk 30 steps, I'll get to 30. Linearly speaking. But if I walk 30 steps exponentially, I get to 1 billion. So the world is changing, and it's changing exponentially. So let's talk a little bit about what this means. Every day, there are about 1.3 million of Android devices being activated every day. There's 3 billion people online. There will be about 10 billion devices, mobile devices, by 2017. If you're thinking about connected devices, a lot of people are saying that within the next 8 years, there will be 75 billion of those devices. And people use it actually every day. There's more content loaded on YouTube than there's been broadcast over the past 5 years of the 3 major US networks. So think about it. This is mind-boggling. Actually, there's about 4.4 zettabyte, which is 10 to the power of 21, of data in the digital universe today. And by 2020, it will be 44 billion, or 44 zettabyte, sorry, 44 zettabyte that will be constituting the digital universe. Just to give you a sort of a parallel to what this means that there will be as many digital bits as there are stars in the universe. So this is really, really mind-boggling. Everything is going to talk to everything else. And you heard about the Internet of Things. There will be trillions of sensors out there. So a new era of computing is just emerging in front of us. And we thought we had cloud computing. Now we're getting this coming on us. So I don't know if a lot of us are prepared for this. What I can tell you is your customers are actually being totally transformed by this. They're the same physical person, but technology has changed the way they are thinking. It's changed the way they're interacting. It's changed the way they're buying. They have infinite choices. They're way more savvy and way more informed than ever. So let's look at one example of that. 10 years ago, or 2004, a lot of you who were maybe in the job you had or different jobs recall that a lot of buyers would go and contact the company whose product they want to use and start asking questions about your product. They would issue an RFI. They'll come back 2 weeks later. They'll attend one of your events. You'll know who they are. They'll ask questions about pricing. They'll issue an RFQ, RFP. You'll know exactly what they're doing. You would control the buying process. And this will also give you access to your competition. You'll know exactly what's going on. Well, let's fast forward to today. What is happening today? Technology has changed your customers. They know a lot more than ever before. They're in forums. They're in social media. They're on peer-to-peer exchange platforms. Actually, by the time they reach you, if you don't pay attention, they know so much that the game is over. Actually, if you are thinking for some of you to go and engage with them in this engagement window, it's become way more opaque, right? How many of you are saying, well, I'm not so sure I'm going to spend money engaging with my customer. I don't have the right ROI. Well, think about it. Those customers are active. They're still there. They're still using all kinds of channels to learn about your company. And so a lot of companies are basically saying, well, I'm going to stick to addressing my customers who are in market. But in that case, that means like you're leaving a lot of your largest audience exposed to competition. Is that really something you want to do? Another example, which is quite striking, or another phenomenon. With the advent of screens, broadband connections, search, social media, big data, you name it, customers are actually going from offline to digital media. That's where they reside. That's where they are. And they've gone very fast to that world. Well, at the same time, it's kind of interesting that if you're looking at all the companies who are like reaching those customers, only 28% of them are spending their investment in media. So basically, that's the phenomenon that I call who moved my customer. A lot of companies are fishing in ponds where there's no fish anymore. The fish is gone. The customers have gone somewhere else. And they're probably also talking to your competition. So that's, again, a big issue that can result from the fact that technology has empowered all your customers. What I would say is that the world is changing. It's changing rapidly. And technology is making your customers way savvier, way more informed. Unless you engage with them actively from the beginning to the end of the cycle, unless in B2B you have the right content and connection strategy with your customers, unless you adapt your media plans to where they are, you run the risk of being totally disconnected. You really run the risk of shrinking yourself to irrelevance. So you could ask me, well, great, I understand all of that. Well, what does it mean? Well, my thesis is that the world is changing in an exponential manner. And as Andy Grove said one day, he said, only the paranoid survive. I'm tempted to say that in today's world, only those who innovate will survive. I would even say that you either innovate or you die. That's really what I think may happen to a lot, or is happening also to a lot of businesses. Good. Well, let's assume that we all agree that we got to innovate. We got to transform our business. We got to innovate. Your question could be, well, that's all great, but what is innovation? How do I innovate? What I'd like to share with you is two guiding principles that are at work at Google. Google is known for innovation, but I'd like to share with you those two insights. The number one is the focus on the end user. Everybody's using that term usually. But what does it mean to Google focus on end user? It means that the overarching driver of our product team is to focus intensely on reviewing and checking how they can improve the user experience every day. If you're looking at search, for example, we're making sure, our engineers are making sure every day that search becomes easier, faster, gives you better answers every day. During the World Cup, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a soccer fan. During the World Cup, you can just type World Cup and get instantaneously the results of the match that was being played at that moment. Today, if you're looking for a restaurant, you can go to Yelp, but you can go on Google, and pretty much with the matching of our Google Maps and other technology, we can give you pretty much the kind of results you want immediately. If you're using OK Google on your Android phone, you actually can get the search, and you can basically execute on the actions. So that tells you that we constantly kind of look at the end user to innovate. The second thinking, which is a little bit more striking, is what we call think 10x. I think Larry is using that word and that expression a lot. What this means is like thinking big, thinking out of the box. Well, I talked about the brain that is kind of thinking linearly. Actually, as human beings, we usually are looking for incremental approaches. The reality is this. But if you think about incremental, it doesn't embrace exponential changes. So how do you deal with that? Well, again, Larry and Sergey and the team of Google think that you have to think 10x, which means you have to think 10 times on improving a situation that you're approaching so that you can start getting some radical transformation and radical outcome. Now, that's not easy. You need a lot of resources. You need a lot of focus. But the key point here is the mindset. If you have the right mindset and you use the 10x thinking across the board with your team, I can tell you you'll see a difference as soon as you're starting to do this. So all that is good. You could say, PH, fine, I love it, but it's a little bit theoretical. Give me examples of what you have done that can basically prove to me that it works. And the problem I've been at Google for only 3 or 4 months, so I'm not going to use a Google example. But I'm rather going to use an example of when I was at Dell, and I was the CMO of the consumer and small medium businesses around 2008 for about 2 or 3 years. So let me tell you what it was kind of a brand new job for me. I was GM, thrown into a CMO job. I thought I'd screwed up. No, but really I had the best 2 or 3 years of my career. When I came in, I realized that the company was actually more like a performance-based marketing company. And I would look at our SMB customers and we kind of realized that those customers had adopted, they had divorced from our well-oiled buying process and adopted other processes. So as we realized that, we did 3 major things. The number one is we realized that brand matters. It does matter for B2B. That's what we found. A customer that is emotionally connected to a brand will be twice likely to consider your brand and 4 times likely to purchase. First thing we had to do is to redefine the brand and make sure that it was aligned to our marketing and to our products. And then 2, we launched a worldwide brand campaign that was really built around the customers and what technology could do for them. So I'm not going to bore you with the detail of it, but it was a resounding success. And since then, SMB has been really the jewel of Dell. The second thing that we did is we kind of looked at our customers and asked ourselves, where are they? The famous, who's moved my customers? We found they were in forums like Spiceworks. They would be in peer-to-peer exchange. They'll spend time in places where we're not. They would sometimes not even attend our events, right? And so what we did was to radically shift our marketing towards digital media and social media. And you can go check now, it's just not me, because there's been people after me, but Dell is pretty good at having established an amazing social media platform. Anybody from Dell here? No? Yeah? Over there? Okay. But this is really what I think is at the heart of being successful for you, is to make sure that you're kind of looking at how you're connecting with the customers and also how you're curating the information that you're making available to your customers. And the third thing was we had a huge amount of information, a lot of information on all of you, all of our customers. The problem is that we're not turning this into insights. And so what we did, and it was not because we're not smart, it's just because we didn't have the resolve to go and take that information and really understand what it meant. So what we did, what I kind of decided with my team, we're going to put CRM because at that time we didn't have all the sophisticated tools that Google can now offer you. But we put CRM at the center of every B2B program and initiatives that we run at that time. Now, let's talk about thinking 10 times or 10x. As I said, this is more like a mindset. It's kind of a culture. I've been at Google for only 3 or 4 months. I can tell you it's very interesting because 10x is something we do every day. It is really expected, right? I've got some of my team here. I keep asking, what's the 10x? Right? I didn't do that before. It's not an exception. And so I really think that if you're able to introduce that concept in your company and stick to it, it can have major impact. Now, one thing which is really important about 10x cannot be 10x tomorrow. It has to be 10x long term. So you have to make long-term bets. As marketeers, you are positioned to make long-term bets. And you have to go to your leadership team and make sure they agree to this, which I did in my previous company. I went to the CEO and said, hey, we're going to launch a brand campaign. I need the marketing dollars, and we're going to stick to it, and we're going to stick to it for 2 years. The second thing is that you have to adopt at the same time rapid experimentation. The way I like to put it is like not every bet is going to work, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a system to keep testing, and making sure that you can see whether or not you're in presence of a dog or a winner pretty quickly. So rapid experimentation is really important to not just making long-term bets and not be there to measure whether or not they've been working. And then finally, you have to align your product offerings to your brand truth. This is fundamental. If you're not doing this, your customers will not believe you. This is pretty obvious, but I can tell you in many companies, I can see marketing working alone, not really hand in hand with product development. It has to happen that way. Your brand promise has to be reflected in your products and in your services. So, in a nutshell, the world is changing. It's changing rapidly. It's changing exponentially. It is impacting your customers. And unless your company does understand they have to transform their business every day, unless your company understands they have to adopt and embrace the new digital opportunities, I think they're running the risk of fading away and being really outsmarted by a lot of very agile competitors. But the big thing for me is that you as marketeers, you're in the best position to influence the decision of your executive team, because you should be the one who's the most informed about the end user. You should be the voice of the customer. You are the voice of the customer. So that gives you an amazing position to influence your executive team. The second thing about what I think you can do is thinking 10x. And what I would like you to take away from this presentation is that thinking 10x starts by becoming a fire starter. You have to ignite innovation, you have to ignite new ideas, and you have to stick to it. You have to make sure that there's a real sense of urgency in the way your company is embracing the end user and the way your company is embracing transformation. So if I can leave you with 2 things, focus on the end user, think 10x, and I'm challenging you today to listen to everything and pick 1 or 2 things you're going to take back home in your company and make it 10x. Thank you very much. Jay, your turn.